to be able to continually reproduce dropships, but he's still losing the battles. Fantasy pushing in, a lot of tanks out there. Mine going to be forced back a little bit, going to start sieging up here. Very close to his natural expo, very close. And Fantasy just threatening their upper left hand as well. Bad position overall for Mind. He's continued to showing the main now, going to try to take some of those turrets out, but he really needs to be careful. He's going to try to go for another risky maneuver, try to pick off those factories, because last time Fantasy is going to have enough to drop right back on Mind's forces and pick those off. So Mind is very careful. He has a huge fleet, but every time he tries to be maneuverable, every time he tries to move some forces across the map, he's going to sacrifice. He's going to be forced to sacrifice a position elsewhere. Going to go out there, pick off some of the eggs. Going to try to retake at 6 o'clock. Couple Goliaths. Think one, maybe two of the dropships went down. The very least, he's going to be able to fully take down the 6 o'clock position. I actually don't even think every single one of those dropships were full. I think a couple of them were just decoys. Fantasy with weapon 3 upgrades and Mind with 2. So Fantasy also has the weapons upgrade. Still going to continue forcing the 6 o'clock and reinforcing it. Put a couple of turrets down at the front. Moving dropships. Goliath first to take the brunt of the damage from the tanks that are coming close to some damage. Goliath again at the very least going to focus fire some of these dropships with Fantasies, but they're going to still be enough. Tanks coming in very close. Some of Mind's tanks at the back sieging, but just I don't think, not enough. Not enough. Okay, Mine still has some tanks at the back, so he might still manage to hold this, but Fantasy doing a good job of constantly threatening. Has some more reinforcements maybe on the way. Mine, meanwhile, also can continue to reinforce the 6 o'clock position. But Fantasy still doing a very good job of threatening many positions at the same time. Has a nice tank line across the middle for all the way from south to north. So he's, at the very least, holding his own bases, picking up bases at the entire right side. The only base he doesn't have is the lower right. And I think Mine's meanwhile going to try to go for that 4 o'clock position. There are turrets there in the way, though. Not quite. Oh, he's bypassing them. Beautiful job here by Mine. There's only going to be one turret that main scans it. He's going to take some shots from that. Fantasy does have more on the north side. There's going to be a huge drop coming in from Mine here. He's going to at the very least try to do some damage. Doing a good job. Neither player can really at this point afford to lose any bases. Fantasy, I think, is in a slightly stronger position. He's holding the middle pretty well, so on the ground, I don't think Mine's really going to be able to try to go for any sort of push inside of Fantasy's main, or any of Fantasy's bases, I mean. But at the very least, Mine's going to be able to use his huge dropship fleet, because he does have those 2 star push producing dropships all the time. He's going to be able to reinforce that huge dropship fleet, even if he's lost like 5, 6 dropships, if not more, this entire time. So while Fantasy's lost maybe 2, maybe 3. But just the production on Mine's part, it's been huge this entire game. He's had a lot of bases going. He's still mining at his main, and you generally, when the turn is playing, you generally don't see that. You don't really see that beyond a TBT, because every base is saturated just to the point it needs to be, because there are a lot of expansions going in. There's going to be a little bit of an attack here. Mine going to go in. A lot of tanks, actually. These might actually turn into a big attack. No Goliath to support, though. Just going to be forced on sieging up. But yeah, Fantasy has just a huge line here. This is the focal point. This is the main point here. Fantasy with a huge number of his own tanks there, and dropping on top of that could both turn out to be advantageous and extremely dangerous, because if he drops on that, picks up all those tanks, and then gets his entire own force dropped upon and picked off, not really going to be that great for him. So let's see. Mine has the 6. Has the 6, the 7, the main, the nat, the inside 9, I think. And the upper left hand, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases to Fantasy's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think it's 6 on 6 bases right here. And who comes up on advantages in that? I'm not too good. When it's that kind of base, when the economy stays very equal. Pretty much what it comes down to is the battle and who manages to do the more economic damage. Mine going to continue dropping in at this lower right hand. He's going to try to envelop things a little bit, envelop the middle a little bit, and deny this base for Fantasy, because this is very short route. This is most likely going to be Fantasy's next base. Don't think he's mining anything at the lower right at that 5 o'clock position, though, right now. Don't see command center with any of these mining there. Mine did a good job of running that for a while. Has some forces still waiting there. Going to be a drop coming in here for Fantasy towards this lower right. Towards this 5:30, so he's going to be able to clean this up at the very least. Mine trying to hold that position, but it's not going to last very long. It didn't reinforce, didn't have any dropships close to do really anything for that position. The middle, well, actually, looking at it right now, 3 minutes ago, it's a little bit weaker now for Fantasy. Still has that strong lines at the north, at the south, near in the very middle itself. Not too much. You see slightly thicker red blimps out there for Mine. That's probably why he feels he can send some forces out, some feelers out there to try to do some damage. Still, I think finally Fantasy's, finally reestablishing that base past the eggs. Mind going for an aggressive action across the middle. Going to try to get his forces to the north side of these southern forces. These are one of the main forces of Fantasies. He has to hold this position. He has a lot of dropships out there as well. Mind going to still try to hold this. He needs more Goliath support, I feel, though. Siege Tank's going to come in, but I think Fantasy just needs to go for one huge drop on top of that because there's not a lot of Goliaths. One of the things that Mind hasn't done, he hasn't really supported all these tanks with too many Goliaths. Well, Fantasy's had a lot of Goliaths out there. Fantasy also going to pick up the roll right-hand position. He's putting down a lot of turrets. He's going to be putting on a command center there very soon. And I'm not quite sure where Mind's entire dropship force is. I only saw 3, maybe 4 together grouped up. And he should have a much bigger one. I'm not quite sure. I think you lost a couple in that attack for it, but I didn't quite know if you lost that many. Going to go in and push on these turrets, make sure that base doesn't come down. Was that? No, I thought it was a floating rack. But it's just going to be a drop coming in for Fantasy as well on the opposite side. Mind has a partial pincer on this. He has tanks on the south side at that 4 o'clock base, which he is denying. So actually I counted that earlier, but it shouldn't count. Shouldn't have counted because he was really denying that for a good job, for a good time. And at this point, it's Fantasy fighting back. He's definitely trying to get his bases up. Mind really still this entire game hasn't really had to deal with any sort of economic advantage. He's been the aggressor. He's been the one that going for aggressive actions. Some of them haven't really worked as well as a couple of others, but at the very least, he's forcing Fantasy to react to him. And sometimes that can be a great big advantage when you're the one that forces your opponent sitting around thinking, okay, what's this guy going to do? Where's he going to attack? What's he going to do? You're forcing your opponent to be scanning around, being careful. Oh, Fantasy has a physics slap out there. Starburst Controls comes out there, so he's already getting himself ready for some battle cruisers. Going to try to preempt Mind in this. Going to try to preempt him with the battle cruisers. Fantasy, one of the players out there, really likes the battle cruisers. Others would be Firebat Hero and Flash as well. Generally, sometimes to the level when it gets to this, you get to see a lot of battle cruisers out there with the economy strong enough. I think Mind should be able to spot this actually. Meanwhile, it's actually going to go in for the troop here. A lot of tanks are coming and clear the middle. Going to penetrate all the way into this. I'm going to see whether this actually cascades into a group towards the low right-hand position and to pick off all those forces. A lot of dropships out there. Some of them have forces inside. SCV's actually running in head first to take, I think, absorb hits more than anything else and act as partial scouts. But Fantasy doesn't have a very strong position down there anymore. He's lost his control of the middle at this point. He's going to try to retake control of the entire map and the game by going battle cruisers, but he has to get a large enough amount. And I'm wondering what exactly it is that we're going to see that fight back with. We're going to see whether Mind decides to do this, go the same route, go for battle cruisers as well. Or where he decides to switch up, just focus heavily on the Goliaths, maybe even go just heavy wraiths, try to counter battle cruisers with simple cloak. With heavy cloaked wraiths, or just those Goliaths. We're going to see what it is that goes for what he goes for. Fantasy, meanwhile, going to drop in. Finally, going to go in to finish off this troop inside of his 5 o'clock base. And just as that happens, Mind's going to try to take advantage of this and move in with his forces towards the wall right and clean up this position, clean up all these dropships, open this position up a little bit. So at the very least, he's going to lose some forces. There's his final Goliaths desperately still hanging in there. Are going to die. Taking some of the forces in there, but he's meanwhile going to move into the lower right hand. He's going to have a little bit of a hard time moving up that ramp, but he's going to pick up a siege position, and now he has more control of the map. So Fantasy, picking up a base, but sacrificing position, and these were just one of the big risks you got to take during TVTs. It's always a mix, fighting with troops all over the place because you can have many different battles all across the map. You gotta sometimes you gotta sacrifice position to pick up another base. Sometimes you gotta sacrifice a base to pick up position. Sometimes you gotta sacrifice troops to pick up to get some more economy. Sometimes you gotta sacrifice economy to be able to win a battle. Just so many factors coming in TVT, and sometimes it's really hard to pay attention to this. We're going to see Mind going for another drop. Fantasy, I think, coming in with a counter drop on this. We're going to see whether he's going to have enough. Mind, I think